So welcome back. We're back in the sub-basement. Yeah, that was a absolutely beautiful performance. I just want to, do a little interview with you, just kind of talk about the way that you're, I don't know, just doing this, I guess.
Just out here. Yeah. Thank you. I was quite nervous. Hence the mic stand falling was my personal highlight. But, you know, it happens. It happens, yeah. I mean, I do have a history of microphone stands and me just not really getting along. I hate them. I hate them with no love, actually. Yeah. Just a hate relationship. I just hate them. No offense, guys.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan either. Lord knows.
Amazing.
So you've been in the U.S. a lot this year between like South by Southwest and then the earlier tour this summer, and then now you got this tour. So, what's that kind of been like, just jumping back and forth from like Europe and here?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, I've wanted to play shows in the US for years, and I had so many fans online being like, "Come to the US! Like, why won't you come to the US?" And I feel like people started taking it personally. They were like, "Okay, you hate us then?" I was like, "No, I had so much going on with my old label, and then COVID happened, and then." So, I never really got the opportunity until this year. And yeah, it's just been amazing. Like the earlier tour in spring, like we went to New York, LA, Chicago, we did South by, we did some shows in California with Alt J, and then so many fans were like, "Okay, cool. You've come to the US, but you haven't come to us. You've only gone to like the main, like New York, LA, whatever." And they were like, "We're out here, like, struggling, like, come here." So, not struggling. Like, what's the word? We're starving. That's what I meant to say. We're starving. We need some girly in our lives. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And this tour's been amazing because for me as well, I've never... all of the cities we're playing in, I think, apart from San Francisco, I've never been to before. Okay. And so, not only is it remarkable for me to... The idea of going somewhere I've never been and there being a room full of people who listen to my music... is amazing, but also, I love meeting fans after the shows. I always hang around at the merch stand, like chat to people, hearing their stories and hearing when they started listening to my music, and that stuff that's sort of like why that really, really warms my heart, and it's just amazing to me. Like I can't really wrap my head around it. Like, but then also, we've been getting involved in the culture. We've been doing some touristing. So yeah, it's been good.
Like that's half the fun.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, what was it like kind of going from the COVID mindset of like, oh, I'm no longer on a record label, I'm just going to make a bunch of songs, to then finally being able to like play them live at big festivals like South by Southwest, and then also just shows around the world? Like, what's that, I guess, been like?
It's been amazing. I mean, it's been an amazing like few years, really. COVID was interestingly timed for me because I had just been dropped by my first label, and that label was a really big, major label, and I'd signed to them when I was like a teenager still, and I'd had a really, really bad experience with them. I was so young, and I was just kind of molded really into, I felt in retrospect, at the time I didn't realize, but now I look back and I just feel like, I was molded into sort of like what they wanted this sort of like pop hit machine to be, and that just really wasn't me. And then after my first album, I was so lost, and I got dropped, and then basically I lost my entire team, my manager, my booking, my show agent, my label, like everything, and I was just kind of left on my own. And then COVID happened, and that was actually obviously COVID was awful. I really don't want that to happen again, and I'm sure no one does. But for me, it was actually kind of almost a relief to have, okay, everyone is in the same boat. Like, no one can actually really do anything right now. Because I get this, and especially at the time, I was feeling this anxiety of like, everyone else is progressing and I'm back at square one. What do I do? And so it was a good time for me to just basically figure out who I was and who I wanted to be. And then I signed to an indie label end of 2020, and then since then I've just been, releasing music as myself and figuring that out. And now I feel like I've got to a point where I'm like, okay, amazing. I know so much more who I am. I'm so much prouder of the music I'm making, of the videos I'm making, the shows I'm doing. And yeah, I think COVID was like this sort of turnaround moment for me.
Yeah, I think it held everyone pretty steady, so you really just got to do that work on that like personal development and figuring out what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess just what's it been like mostly releasing singles and mostly just like working on one small product at a time versus...
Yeah, it's been... I think I had to do that to sort of like experiment, because for me, especially after coming from this big label where my entire team were not really interested in my creative or self-development. They were like, okay, let's make money basically. And so I had to figure out really, okay, well, what do I want to make when there's no one breathing down my neck with these ideas? How do I stay true to myself? And I was like, I don't really know what myself is. So I think for me, I had to do all these little projects, and each one from the last couple of years is so wildly different. Each one it could be a different artist really. But I think for me, I'm really proud of that, because I kind of had to do that like self-discovery publicly. I was like, okay, I'm just going to release this and release that, and they're all going to be different vibes. And as soon as I released something, I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling that. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's been really, really exciting and amazing, because working on longer form projects, it's like looking at that journey is really cool.
Yeah, and you kind of seem to put out like one very, I don't know, traditionally like gay song, and like, you kind of like drop a mental health song, and like how does that
Classic
arc like work? How do you decide what you're working on at one given time?
I don't know. It's funny, because I feel like being gay and then being mentally ill just sort of like, you have girly.
Oh, they're teammates.
They're teammates. No, I mean, I think, I just write. People are always like, oh, so, where do you, like, how do you decide what you're going to write about? I was like, I don't really decide. Something happens in my life and I just need to write about it, because that's the only way I can process what's happened and figure out how I feel about it. And, then that song ends up, okay, being, oh, okay, that's a gay song. Oh, that's a mental health song. But at the time, I when I'm writing, I don't really even think about it like that. Although Matriarchy, which just came out, I definitely remember feeling like, this is something I've wanted to say for a long time, and I feel like I found a way to say it. So that was a little bit more like, went into the studio, it was like, all right, today we're writing a song about how it feels when you're in a queer relationship and you feel like the patriarchy doesn't exist in that bubble.
Yeah.
But interesting, the arc of gay song, mental health song, gay song, mental health song. Yeah.
That's a nice.
You've got me not questioning. You've got me. Yeah, I'm going to go look at my discography after this. Like, there's a pattern.
I mean, I love both. Yeah.
I feel so added right now.
So with Matriarchy, like how did the process of that kind of come along? Because you mentioned like you felt like you finally felt like you had the words to put to what you wanted to say. But how did that come about between, like, this being kind of your second big thing of the year?
Yeah, I think I released my last EP, Why Am I Like This, and then I had a summer of I'd been writing music during that sort of release period, and then I had a summer of playing some shows and sort of figuring out what next, and I had this song that was I only wrote it I think I wrote it about 10 months ago or something, and it was when I started dating my partner, and I just really wanted, like, at that time I just felt like, oh my God, and I still feel it, by the way. Love you, babe. I felt this freedom of like, oh my God, like in a world that is so just full of BS, and especially, you know, being a woman and being a queer woman, like just on a daily basis, it almost wears you down how much the patriarchy just really, really be patriarching. Oh, yeah. And yeah, I just felt this freedom when I was with her and when I am with her, you know, because I was like, whatever is going on out there, like in this bubble, we create our own world that is, you know, devoid of all of that shit. And I, you know, that's why I wanted to write it. I was like, matriarchy, because I knew that this was a feeling that a lot of my fans would relate to. I knew, you know, this is a conversation I've had with a lot of friends who are queer, and you know, obviously I'm writing this from the perspective of being a queer woman, but I think it also can be applied to just being LGBTQ+, you know, in general, that you are rewriting the rules of, you know, what you've been taught and what you've been raised to be. And because we live in a society where, you know, heteronormativity is what you're taught from as soon as you're born, and the gender binary is just shoved down your throat from literally birth as well. And so, you know, when you exist outside of those norms, you are like creating your own world, really, because, you know, this world can be so unkind. So you do end up kind of being like, all right, well, this is my new world. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that is absolutely fantastic. I know that as I was kind of preparing for this, you dropped Matriarchy, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, I have so many thoughts. So many
this
thoughts,
interview has
questions.
just changed.
Yeah. But I love that idea of, like, as soon as we get to be alone and we get to be ourselves, we get to make our own little, like, slice of heaven, I guess.
Yes,
or just
I love that.
our own little
slice of heaven.
Space to be who we are, and I really like that is such an important ideal to me, and I absolutely love this song.
Aw, thank you.
Absolutely,
that's so nice.
So I guess going back to the EP you dropped this year, like, what was kind of the process with that? Like, how did you decide to stitch the songs that you did together, and like what kind of decided that, I suppose?
It was quite a random process, really, because I think for me, I know a lot of artists will kind of, especially I guess bands who are sort of more traditionally like have everyone on a different instrument, and they'll go into a studio and they'll be like, we are recording this EP, or we are recording an album, and they'll go in and be like, okay, we've written all these songs, you know, demo versions, and now we're going to like all record them together. Whereas, you know, for me, the way I make music, and I think the way a lot of pop artists make music as well, is that, you know, you'll go in the studio and you'll just be like, today I'm going to write a song. And it's not necessarily part of this project or part of that one. It's just, today I'm going to write a song, and I'm going to write a couple songs every week over a certain period of time, like when I'm not touring, and then I'll, you know, look back on them and listen to them and be like, okay, like, is there something forming here? And so that's what happened with Why Am I Like This. I kind of, you know, all those songs were written completely unrelated to each other, but they just kind of came together. Like, you know, there's a song about self-sabotaging when you're in like a relationship, and then there's a song about, you know, being in a relationship and the other person self-sabotaging it, and figuring out your boundaries with people, and realizing you don't owe anyone free therapy when you're, you know, in a relationship with them. And then there's another song which is kind of the happy, it was like the moment, the breather, which is about falling in love. It was quite a sort of, I guess, a relationship EP, but then I wanted to bring in Imposter Syndrome, which was the other song on it, because then I realized, okay, even though a couple of these songs are taking inspiration from when I'm in relationships, actually these songs are about me figuring out my boundaries, my issues, my, you know, what's going on mentally for me. And then also around that time when I released that EP, I know it was only earlier this year, but I don't know. I feel like when you're in your 20s, like a couple months is like a decade, I don't know, in terms of change. And like, for me, like, you know, since I released that EP earlier this year, like at the time I was so confused about who am I? And especially I think because, you know, my whole career, you know, when I was with my earlier label, there was all this pressure to be a certain sort of hit maker thing. And then when I got back into music after COVID, like TikTok exploded and all these different social medias exploded, where the way to get famous on those, or the way to get attention, was to fit a very, you know, a specific, like, I guess, I was going to say niche, but not really. It's like to fit, you know, a what are you? Like, okay, what's your brand? Like, are you, you know, one of those people who's going to like make songs, you know, on the fly, or do like, are you alt? Are you queer? Are you this? Are you that? You know, and like, what kind of queer are you? What kind of alt are you? And I felt so much pressure to like figure out which of these things I fit into, that I kind of ended up feeling like, oh, maybe I'm just not like meant to do this, because I don't relate to any of these, and I don't know, like, and I definitely lost myself kind of again because of social media and the pressures of it. And so, yeah, that's kind of what happened with that EP.
Yeah, I feel like I actually did want to talk to you some about how, like, TikTok marketing, it really, like, kind of emphasizes the need for a genre. And, you know, you are a person that, like, kind of fits a genre, but doesn't necessarily, like, you know, you can't really define yourself by boom, 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 like, these are the 4 things about me, this is what my music does, and then this is it. So I guess how do you work within the nuance of, like, your music to market it on TikTok in, like, such a straight up way, I guess?
It's hard. I mean, you know, because TikTok, especially for songwriters and musicians, it makes you take, you know, a 3-minute like piece of art, and, you know, condense it into like 15 seconds, or speed it up, or change it, or do something where, and, you know, it also, as an identity, an artistic identity, it makes you, like, sort of have to brand it, like, so, and catch people's attention immediately. And, you know, I'm always talking to friends about how, like, our attention span has just reduced to like a few seconds now because of social media. And, you know, like, my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation, like, music was, you know, you either got like a recommendation, or you heard it on the radio, or you went to the record store and you looked for like the covers you liked or whatever, and you listened to an entire album because, you know, like, that was what you did. You couldn't, like, they didn't have streaming or anything. And so people's attention span was like, you listened to the whole of the artist's project and you really got involved in what they were doing. And now it's like, no, okay, if the first line of the song doesn't catch me, I'm out. You know, oh, long intro, let's cut that down. And now songs are like 2 minutes long because, you know, again, you want people to play them again and again and again for streams. You know, no one's going to play a 5-minute song again, and stuff like this, where it's the algorithm is affecting music, which deeply upsets me.
Because you're kind of forced to be very direct about whatever you're going to do. Like, you can't let it breathe. You can't let, like, the artistry take over as much when you just have to get your point across as quickly as possible, I guess.
I think so, for sure. I mean, you know, on the other hand, like, I found so many cool artists through TikTok, and, you know, there are, like, some amazing songs that obviously, you know, have amazing songs and artists who have got their start on TikTok. So it's like, it is like the, you know, it's just such a, like, double-edged sword because, yeah, there's good and bad. But I definitely do worry that the sort of attention span of people is definitely impacting, if, you know, regardless of anything else, I think mainly like artists' mental health as well, because it's, you know, the pressure to market yourself is so intense. And, you know, a couple decades ago, like, as the artist, you made the music, you did the shows, and then your label, like, marketed it because that's their job, honestly, like, you know, and now it's like, okay, so, yeah, you're the artist, so you're going to make the song, you're going to do the shows, but also you have to do all the promotion, and you have to spend hours and hours, like, finding the trends and making videos and all this stuff. And it's like, but that's your job, you know? And, you know, again, some people would argue it's given so much freedom to artists because now you don't need a label. You can just, you know, blow up on your own and, you know, independently run it, which, again, is amazing. But I think the bad outweighs the good, really.
Yeah, that's fair. Understandable. I kind of wanted to talk to you about the, I guess, kind of the binary between imposter syndrome and spacing on child.
Cheap Love or Inner Child?
Inner Child.
Inner Child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, kind of what part of that was like, oh, this is specifically a me thing. This is specifically a like former partner thing. Like, what? Mm-hmm. How did that process go about itself, I guess? What,
when writing Inner Child or
I guess just when writing both.
Both, yeah. I mean, imposter syndrome was just fully about my relationship with myself, and just wanting to like run away from everything because, you know, I just could not stop, just overthinking everything and feeling like everything just felt like it was closing in on me, and like no one liked me, and I wasn't supposed to be doing music anymore. And, you know, I was just so much negative self-talk. It was just getting so much that I just, you know, regularly had fantasies about like running away and throwing my phone in a river and like, you know.
Hop in the first train somewhere?
Yeah, or just like, you know, adopting some like pigs and cows. I don't know. To be fair, that is still my dream, but it's going to be in like 20 years. But, you know.
That's fair.
But yeah, that was fully just about my relationship with myself. And then Inner Child was kind of like about me realizing the respect I deserve and sort of just learning how to set boundaries, but in the context of just dating someone really emotionally unavailable and energy sucking. Because I think for me as well, like I'm a very I don't know what the word is. I'm very generous with my energy, I guess. And I feel like over the last like year or so, I've become less generous with it, which is interesting because when you actually learn to set boundaries for yourself, a lot of people will accuse you of being mean or, oh, you've changed, like you've become kind of different, like what's happened? And actually, I've just like realized that I don't want to let you manipulate me anymore, you know. And I've lost a lot of friends, and you know, my life and lifestyle has really changed since I kind of stopped letting people walk all over me. Yeah. And Inner Child was sort of one of those moments. It's interesting because I listened to that song and I'm like, gosh, wow, I would never date anyone like this ever again. But you know, at the time, I just didn't know any different. I didn't realize that, I deserve better, and there will be people out there who treat me better. Why am I doing this? You know, and with the energy thing, like I just gave way too much time and energy to people who didn't care enough about me, really. You know, and that was a big realization for me.
Nah, that song has been also very important to me through this past year, because I've also been doing the, oh God, maybe I deserve better than just people pleasing and being able to set boundaries and like having people that love you for you, and that is such a horrifying and uncomfortable realization to come to.
It's very uncomfortable. Yeah. People don't talk about it enough, actually. I think there's definitely this sort of, and I think it's amazing, you know, the whole like self-love, empowerment thing that's been happening the last couple of years, especially online. But I think what people don't talk about as much, people will be like, yes, like be a boss, like you don't want that negative energy in your life, get rid of it. But what people don't talk about enough, I think, is that it can be really, really painful to like when you start loving yourself more, because then you actually realize, oh, I think I've got to get rid of some people who don't love me enough. And I've also got to adjust to the fact that like maybe I'm changing as a person, because maybe my personality was very linked to the people pleasing, to the, not setting boundaries. And yeah, it can be really hard, when you have sort of people pleased your whole life, to not think, am I becoming like a mean person?
Yeah,
am I becoming,
am I a bad person?
And also the people that you try, distance yourself from will also make you feel that way. They'll make you feel guilty about it. So yeah, it's really hard, but it's growth is uncomfortable. And I think when there's discomfort, sometimes that's an indication that you are growing.
Yeah, I think that self-learning process is really just so complicated, and the way I think we as a society talk about it, it's very much like, oh, this is just like easy, everyone should already know this. And I'm like, no, that's like step 2 of a process that we are very much on step 1 of. And it just gets difficult sometimes. But
yes, well done though.
We try.
You have this, you got it.
So I think we're actually going to wrap it up, but thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you managed to make it out, and I'm really excited to see how you do tonight.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. Perfect.
Amazing.
This has been Girly in the Sub Basement Studio.